All right, welcome to North Georgia Advocate Podcast number 19. Viral and I are here with Hall County District Attorney candidate Shiv Sachdeva. I assume I said that close to correct.
Close to correct.
Welcome,
It's Sachdeva.
Sachdeva. Okay, I'm sure you've heard so many pronunciations, it's not even funny, but we appreciate you coming on. I mean, the DA is a very important, it's one of the most important figures in the county. I mean, it is the most important in the law enforcement, in the law part of it, enforcing upholding the law and holding people accountable. So give us a little bit of your background and how you not really, I mean, how you got into being a prosecutor, because not everybody wants to be a prosecutor. That's a different animal than being a regular defense attorney. And what forced you, you're not really forced you, but made your decision up to run for DA?
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for having me, Viral and Chris. I appreciate you guys giving me this platform to talk about myself and my campaign. First of all, Chris, to answer your first question, I do think I need to explain a little bit about what a DA is and what he does. I think a lot of people probably kind of have a vague idea as to what a DA does and what a DA is. So it's important for people to know, like you said, how important a district attorney is. The district attorney is the main prosecutor for all felony crimes in the circuit. And this circuit is Hall County and Dawson County. So that's the top criminal prosecutor official in the whole circuit. Extremely important position, and he deals with felonies. So, you have the Solicitor General race. The Solicitor General deals with misdemeanors. But a felony is anything where someone can be charged with something where they could spend more than a year in jail or prison. So anything that's serious, that ends up that's a felony, and the district attorney prosecutes all the felonies in the circuit. That's Hall and Dawson County. So extremely important position. Basically, the district attorney needs to have a really good relationship with law enforcement, because the district attorney is the one who finally actually makes the final decisions about charges as well. A lot of people don't realize that when the police arrest someone and they charge someone with whatever crime it is, that's just the initial charges. That's not the final charges. The DA is the one who actually decides the final charges. So DA has a lot of power, a lot of authority, and a lot of responsibility, because the DA can either go along with the charges that the police officers made. The DA can change the charges if he thinks that's appropriate, or the DA can dismiss the charges and dismiss the case. So that's how important the role of the district attorney is. And it's extremely important for the district attorney to work with all the law enforcement agencies to help build these cases that end up going to trial and going into the court system. So going to my background, I've always been interested in prosecution. I'm not one of those people who's done anything else, frankly. Up until recently, when I had to leave the DA's office, my whole career, my whole legal career has been in prosecution. So I went to UGA, University of Georgia, for undergrad. And then in undergrad, actually, my major was not related to anything related to law. It was actually MIS, which is Management Information Systems. And my minor was criminal justice. And when I took those classes, all my criminal justice classes, I realized that's what I wanted to do. And all of my professors in the criminal justice program at UGA, they encouraged me to join go into law school. They're like, Shiv, you have the aptitude to do this. You need to go into law school. And that's what I did. I went to UGA Law after undergrad. While at law school at UGA, I was in the prosecution clinic program there. So that shows you how, even as a law student, I wanted to be a prosecutor. And what's the prosecution program at UGA? It's basically a classroom component, but also real world component where you do an internship with the DA's office while you're in law school. So I was in that program for a year and a half. It's a long program. It's like basically half of my time in law school. I was in that program. I was working at the DA's office in Athens while I was in law school, and also had these classes in law school regarding prosecution. By the time I graduated from law school in 2006, I was awarded the top prosecution student in all of UGA law. I got the award for being the number one prosecution student in UGA. I graduated, I started off my career as a felony prosecutor. A lot of times people will start off their career as solicitors, as misdemeanor prosecutors, but I always wanted to do felony prosecution, right? So right off the bat, I became a felony prosecutor. I started off my prosecution career all the way down south in Columbus, Georgia. Um, I was there for a year and a half until I came to Hall County in 2008. So July 1st of 2008 was when I started as a prosecutor in Hall County. And up until just recently, I was a prosecutor in Hall County. So it's been about 18 years now, from 2008 to 2026. In that time, I've prosecuted every single felony case that you can think of. Any serious case that you can think of, I've handled. Any serious case that you can think of, I've dealt with. I've taken a bunch of those cases to trial. I've tried, I think, 65 to 70 serious felony cases, which include drug trafficking to human trafficking, from child molestations to rapes, from armed robberies to gang cases, and from all types of homicide cases, murder cases. In fact, I have a 100% record conviction rate on every single murder case that I've taken to trial. So I've done this a long time. I've had a lot of experience. During that time, um, I was also the lead prosecutor for my courtroom. Uh, and I've been in a couple of different courtrooms. I was assigned to the chief judges usually. So I did a long period of time in front of Judge Goslin, who used to be the chief judge, chief superior court judge, and I was the lead prosecutor in her courtroom. And I supervised all the ADAs on that team and all the other staff, which include investigators, victim advocates, legal assistants. So I was supervising all of them while I was leading that courtroom. When Judge Goslin retired, Judge Deal became the chief judge for the Superior Court judges, and then I was in front of him, leading my team um, in his courtroom. I also spent some time in front of some of the other judges, Judge Fuller, who's since retired, Judge Oliver as well. So I've had an experience working in front of all the judges, but mainly in front of the chief judges and leading the team. One of my other roles in the DA's office was supervising the law school interns. While I was in the DA's office, I ran the internship program because I liked working with young people and training the new prosecutors, especially prosecutors, law students who have a passion for prosecution. Because, like you said, Chris, not everybody wants to be a prosecutor. It's a stressful job. You don't get paid as much as you get paid in private practice, obviously. So it was a privilege for me to work with students who actually wanted to be prosecutors, who came to the DA's office to intern with us and had a passion. So I supervise students from all over the state, whether it's UGA or Georgia State, Emory, Mercer, John Marshall, all the law schools that you can think of. Um, so that was one of my roles. And, over time, people come, they get some experience, they leave, they go into private practice, and it's understandable because you can make a whole lot more money in private practice. I never did that because my passion always was in prosecution and public service. I could have left, made a whole lot more money, started my own practice, but I decided not to. So that's my background and my experience. Um, The reason I'm running is because over the last decade, the district attorney, the incumbent leader, hasn't really been active at all, and that's reflected in the office. It's reflected in the rate of serious crimes in Hall County, especially. Um, it's really, like we talked about right at the start. That's why I wanted to emphasize the importance of the DA. The DA is so important in the criminal justice system. He's the number one guy in the criminal justice system. And for that person to be basically semi-retired and not be active is really has an effect on the whole criminal justice system. The last time he tried a case was back in 2013. That was more than 3 terms ago, and that's very troubling. Um, and the case that he tried, he didn't do a good job. It was an individual who was charged with boating under the influence and causing the death of 2 little kids. And he was charged with a lot of felony charges, and the DA basically fumbled the prosecution and the trial, and the guy ended up being found not guilty of every single felony charge, just got found guilty of a couple of misdemeanors, a slap on the wrist for basically causing the death of 2 kids. And that same guy recently was again arrested for DUI just recently. So he's still out there. And, the DA, one of the reasons is because the DA didn't do his job. And that's a very good example of the consequences of having a DA who's not doing his job. And I think that's really the reason why he hasn't tried a case since 2013, which is, 13 years ago now, is because he realizes that he can't try cases anymore. And what he should have done was step down back then. He really should have, because once you realize that you can't do it anymore, and it is tough. As you get older, this is not the type of job where you can just be in cruise control. A DA's position is extremely demanding, extremely stressful. You have to be very active, very alert. You have to be in the courtroom. You have to be handling the most serious cases. You have to be in the front line. Um, and he hasn't been doing that. And I think one of the things he said in the past as well, I'm a DA, I'm more of an office manager. Well, that's not accurate. If you look at DAs of similar size circuits, whether it's the DA in Athens, who just became DA, just recently tried a case as soon as he became DA in January. And if you look at other circuits, DAs are trying cases. So I think he's trying to fool the public into thinking the DA's job is not to try cases. It is. Now, is the DA's job to try every single case? Of course not. That's why you have the ADAs. But the DA should be trying the most serious cases. And there is no excuse for him not to be trying cases. And if being an office manager is his main responsibility, like he says, he's not doing a good enough job of that either, because he's not active, he's not around. Some of the people on the staff are just running the show. Law enforcement are frustrated with him. Judges are frustrated with the DAs because he's not around to answer questions, to attend meetings. And there are other people who are just doing all the work and have no accountability because there's no DA around. So even if his job is an office manager, he hasn't been doing that for a decade now. And there's no accountability. And I think that's what's led to some of the venom that I've faced in this campaign. Frankly speaking, it's been pretty horrible and unprofessional with the DA staff. Some of them just acting out. It's unethical. They're public officials. They shouldn't be speaking about an election where their boss is involved. They're getting a paycheck because they work there. So obviously they have an extreme conflict of interest, and so they really shouldn't be getting involved. And they're being extremely unprofessional. It reflects poorly on the office. And frankly, the silver lining of all the horribleness and all the venom is that it proves my point. They're really proving my point. Every time they post something or speak out, it shows my point that there's a complete lack of institutional control in the DA's office. There's a complete lack of accountability. In fact, it seems like even though he's the one, the DA is on the ballot, it seems like they're acting like they're on the ballot. I'm not running against them. They're speaking out. They're not the one that people are voting for. It's him, and he's absent even now. Like, he's proving my critique of him. If someone can't even show up during election time, then it just proves my point that when no one's been watching him for the past decade, just imagine what he was doing when people are watching him now. The elections are 2 weeks away, and he can't bother to show up at any of these public events. He's sending his employees extremely inappropriate, unethical. In fact, he told the Gainesville Times, he emphasized at the start of this election cycle, he said that my employees won't be campaigning for me. He himself admitted that would be very inappropriate. That needs to be kept separate from the campaign. Those are his words. They're printed in the Gainesville Times. Anybody can find them. And he's violated that
Yeah,
right from
that's
the
not
start.
what's happening. I mean, it's pretty obvious. I mean, it's on a daily basis. There's somebody coming out negative about you and taking up for him, you know. And a lot of people may not understand that this is the only chance we get to change the DA. As an elected official, you can't just go in there and fire them.
That's
They've
exactly
either
right.
got to be an election recall or they've got to be commit a major crime or something to where the governor pretty much kicks them out of office.
That's exactly right. And people need to know that this person is saying that they are fit and competent, or all of his people are saying. We haven't heard from him for a long time. He's missed a bunch of events. Um, and so on April 13th, we had an event, the FOP, Local Fraternal Order of Police, which has about 350 law enforcement members. And they wanted to speak to me and they wanted to speak to Lee, the incumbent, and they had a bunch of questions ready. And this was a meeting that had been scheduled weeks in advance because you have law enforcement officers who had to make time to attend this meeting, right? These are officers from various different agencies. You had Hall County Sheriff's Office, Gainesville Police Department, Oakwood Police Department, Sorry Branch Police Department, Georgia State Patrol. And so all of these various agencies, all of these members made it a point to attend this meeting because they wanted to hear from basically the guy who they would have to work with for the next 4 years, right? The guy who's supposed to be working with them hand in hand, making these cases, supporting them, backing them up. And there are a lot of questions planned to ask. So I was told, and Lee was told, that we would have 30 minutes each to speak to the officers, and then we'd have some time to answer any of their questions. And I came prepared, and when I showed up that evening, it was around 6 o'clock on the 13th. They told me that Lee canceled at the last second, and then he sent his chief, Anna, to speak on his behalf. Once again, she's not the one on the ballot. How can she even answer for him? If he can't even bother to show up, how's she gonna say, yeah, you can trust him, he'll be there for you? How? Well, he can't even show up for a meeting that's been planned. And I know for a fact that all the officers were extremely disappointed that Lee wasn't there because they had a bunch of questions for him. But I was there. I was there to answer any of their questions. Whether it was an easy question or a difficult question, I wasn't hiding. I was ready to answer all of their questions, which I did. And I think they're very impressed with what I had to say. And I do think that I got out of the meeting feeling that I had their support. But it was also extremely disappointing for me as well that Lee didn't show up, that, I prepared to be there and I was there for the officers, and that was kind of like a slap to their face. Uh, he did show up that same week to the GOP candidate forum debate. But when he showed up for the debate, uh, there were a couple issues there too, because I had a table reserved for the whole afternoon at that forum and Lee did too. But Lee only showed up for the panel. It wasn't even a full-blown debate. For the 15, 20 minutes he was there. And once again, his table was being manned by his employees. Once again, it was completely inappropriate. So we have the FOP meeting where he sent his employee. I was there because my table's right. I was there manning my table, while his table, he wasn't there. And so any citizens, voters who came had questions. Their questions were being answered by his employees. Extremely inappropriate. something once again that he said he wouldn't do. There were three of his employees there, manning taking care of his campaign table. That he shows up for the forum, the panel, which was about only 15 minutes, and anybody can watch the recording. I think it's probably still going to be on the Hall County Republicans Facebook page if they want to find it. He looked terrible. People couldn't hear what he was saying. He looked like there was something wrong with him physically and cognitively, and it just didn't seem like someone who's fit to run another term. And I was concerned. And you know what? I have no ill feelings against Lee. I hope he's okay health wise, but it didn't look good at all. And I think that's another reason why he's not showed up since then, because they're kind of covering up the fact that he really is no longer fit to run for office, because they saw how bad he looked at the debate. That's why that's the last public appearance he had. That was
Shiv, so
that.
why is he running? Why do you think he's running at this point? Because I feel like you've been in this position for a while now, and you're clearly declining health wise, or at least from your people's perception. You haven't tried a case since 2013, and your office staff is essentially running the show for you at this point. So what do you think, in your opinion, is the benefit of him running again, or do you think the office staff is kind of like pushing him to run again instead of just kind of going into retirement? Because Chris has brought this up. His last thing I guess he did was to pardon the kid from North Hall, and then that would have been a great way to be like, hey, look, my last good deed, I'm out of here, sail off into the sunset, be done with it, and let the new generation kind of start to take over here. But so like, what is it an entitlement thing? Is it a power struggle? What is it?
It's a combination of a lot of those things that you mentioned. Probably a combination of all of it. One frankly is an entitlement thing. He hasn't had opposition, right? So even though he hasn't been active for so long, he's like, look, if I'm not working, my staff's running the show, but I still get the title of DA and I still get the biggest paycheck, right? And I get a paycheck that the taxpayers are basically paying for, and I don't have to do any work. Why should I leave until someone pushes me out? Now, I think that's wrong. Ethically, he should have left, but I think it is a sense of entitlement. Look, I'm the incumbent, right? People don't like to run against incumbents, especially if it's a position like DA. You got to risk a lot. It takes a lot of courage. And that's why, even though he's not been active for the last 3 terms, nobody's run against him. And I think it's a sense of entitlement, which is, and so he thought that he would not have any opposition this time either. Frankly speaking, I thought he would have retired last term at the very least, maybe 2 terms ago. And so I was shocked when he decided he didn't want to retire. And I think he probably thought nobody would run against him. So he's shocked, and it's a sense of entitlement. But the fact is, this isn't a monarchy. You don't just have a seat to the kingdom forever. And that's how it seems like they're treating it. And some of the staff thinks like it's an affront on them that, oh my God, somebody's running against him. How dare someone? Well, everybody who's qualified has the right to run every 4 years against someone. And that's the democratic process, right? But they look at it as some sort of slight. It's not. And if someone's not doing their job, then someone should have the courage and stand up. But the fact is, right now, if you do stand up and you do try to run, people try to tear you down, right? And that's why people don't want to run. Because why would anybody want to run? And so I do think if I'm getting this free paycheck and the sense of entitlement, why should I? And he took it as a personal affront that I decided to run against him. But once again, this isn't a kingdom. You don't just have keys to the kingdom forever. And people do have a right to run against you if you're not doing your job. And I do think one of the other factors, like you mentioned, Beryl, is his staff, right? The people who are in control right now. Right now, as far as I'm concerned, he's just a puppet. He's just a figurehead. They're running the show. They don't want to lose power. They know that if he's gone, they will actually have accountability. And so really, he's literally, he's not there and they're running the show. In fact, what's most concerning right now, what's even more egregious is that not only has he's missed all of these public events. There's a Hall County Board of Realtors. He canceled that. There's another event last Saturday. He canceled that. I've heard that he hasn't been in the office since April 13th. So it's not just public events. He's just not been in the office for almost a month now. That's concerning to me because right now I don't even know if he's fit to finish out the year, let alone 4 more years. And his people are telling the public that vote for him for another 4 years. I think that's unethical. And that's basically a fraud on the public. If he's not fit enough to come to work, if he's not fit enough to come to public events, how are you telling people that he has another 4 years left in him? Because I have grave concerns. I don't know where he is. He's just disappeared. And I know that if he was fit enough to be there, he would, right? Because he knows this is a critical time for him. The elections are literally 2 weeks away. And all we hear is from his people. We aren't hearing from him. Nobody's seen him publicly anywhere. Apparently, he's not even at work. And what happens if he does win and he can't complete? It'll be complete chaos. These people are being so short-sighted about their own agendas that they don't realize that if he wins the primary and then he can't carry on his duties, it's going to lead to just another election.
So
Because
let me ask you this: as far as his absentness in this whole ordeal, a lot of the ongoing active cases, how do they suffer? As far as like the possible victims in some of these cases too, what does that translate to for them?
That's a great question. I'm glad you brought that up. It hurts them because there are cases that are languishing where he needs to make decisions and he's not. I've had people approach me. I've had so many people approach me and say, families of victims saying that we're waiting on the DA's office to do something with this case, or at least waiting on them to give us an answer or communicate with us. And all these people are just getting radio silence right now. It's nobody's reaching out to them. Forget making a decision. Nobody's even telling them what's going on with the process. And so that's a good point. Him not being there just means that you have all of these cases with all of these victims who are not getting answers. And then you also have people in his office making decisions that the DA should be making now because he's absent. Once again, you have others who are making decisions who are not elected. People did not vote for these people to be elected officials. It's Lee. And the people in the office now are making these decisions that he should be making, or there are no decisions being made. Like I said, a bunch of people have come forward and said that nothing's happening with this case. And they're like, Shiv, can you help with this? And I'm like, unfortunately, my hands are tied right now. I'm not even in that office. I can't do anything. I can't make the DA go to the office and look at your case. But it is frustrating to me as well when I hear these complaints and nothing's happening while he's just disappeared and they're covering it up. They're not even letting people know that he's not showing up to work. I don't know where he is at.
Right. Well, and there's a lot of decisions that the DA has to make because you get all these assistant DAs, they've got different beliefs, some liberal, some conservative, but they have to put that out the window as the office has got to show one vision and one way to do things going forward. And that's something that a DA can either say, hey, you make the call on this, or no, we need to do it this way.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
And a lot of people, I think, they're okay with Lee doing this because they get their perception of the DA from watching Law and Order or something, and that's what they do on Law and Order. They just pop into the courtroom here and there. They consult on cases. And that's not a reality in a town this size. It may be in New York City or Chicago or Atlanta or somewhere, but that's not here.
No, it's not. Like we have a prosecution group for the state. It's called the Prosecuting Attorneys Council, and they put on trainings and conferences. And I can tell you, I've gone to these conferences every year, and at these conferences, you have district attorneys who present stuff in the conference, who all talk about cases that they have tried recently or cases that they are trying. So it's not unusual. Frankly, in the state of Georgia, for most of the circuits, where the DA actually handles cases and tries cases. And like I said, even if you want to say that, once again, the title is DA, district attorney. It's not OM. It's not office manager. We already have an office manager in the DA's office. There is this office manager already. There is that role. Somebody's already employed to do that job. So we don't need the DA to be an office manager too. The
Right.
DA is getting paid to be a district attorney. And of course, he can't be a DA or an office manager or anything else if he's not showing up to work.
Right. Because I know I got a fraternity brother that, well, had a fraternity brother that was the DA for Sumter County, that district down there, and he was always trying cases. I mean, I know Americus is not the size of Gainesville, but as big as their district is, I mean, it's kind of comparable. He was always in the courtroom. I mean, he made a lot of decisions, you know, and I know when Lydia Sartain was DA, she tried some cases. She was always in the paper trying cases. And I know Gainesville's grown a lot and Hall County's grown a lot since then, but not really. I mean, in the last 10 years, I think Steve Gailey told us that Hall County's only grown by like 50,000 people. It's not like we've tripled in size or anything.
Yeah, and we haven't, but the rates of serious crime has far outgrown how much Hall County. Every day in the newspaper, people hear about a child molestation or another person getting shot or another aggravated assault. It's ridiculous. And one of the reasons for that is you just have a DA who's checked out, and that really affects what's happening on the streets.
Well, it's like John Batchelor brought it up at the debate. He's tired of going into the freaking store and having to hunt somebody down to unlock the plastic thing so you can get a thing of shaving cream or razors.
That's right.
That's not the type of county we want to live in.
Exactly right. And you know, we just don't right now. The fact is that one of the other things that I did while I was at the DA's office was I was appointed as a special assistant to United States Attorney. So I work with some of our agents, local law enforcement, who also work with the federal government. And one of the things I realized is that the cartel is here. There's like enormous amount of drug trafficking.
People don't understand Gainesville is a huge drug hub.
It is. And it's actually their hub here where they send out drugs to then all the metro areas, Fulton County, and all across, not just the state, but across the country.
Well,
that's how big.
Yeah, the lake's a big part of it. I mean, and it's, you know, and what they don't understand is these drug dealers, they're not the guys walking around with tattoos all over their faces and everything. They're your neighbor.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Playing golf every weekend and doing that. They're learning to assimilate into everyday life, and they're hiding in plain sight.
Yeah, and the way to deal with that, and one of the things that I mentioned to law enforcement, because they are really concerned. One of the things I mentioned at the FOP meeting, and because they are really concerned about this, because they know the cartel is here, they know the drug trafficking is here. What is also very concerning is drug trafficking leads to human trafficking. What happens is these cartels are using these people, usually it's young people, men and young women, as mules to traffic the drugs, and so it leads to human trafficking. They're basically these people, unfortunately, are living in servitude, and this is a huge issue in Hall County. And one of the promises I made, one of my commitments, one of my platforms is that I'm going to make sure that we create a drug task force and a gang task force, because that's so necessary right now in Hall County. Because if something's not done right now, this is a point of no return. In 4 years, there's no coming back because there'll be no turning back. So we need to do something right now. And the DA right now thinks that, district attorneys, all they have to do is go to court or work on cases. No, no. The DA's responsibility far outweighs that. You need an active DA who will work with law enforcement to create these task force. The DA's responsibility is not just when a case comes to the courtroom. A DA's responsibility is right from the start to help make sure that courtrooms are not flooded with cases, to help prevent crime, to work with law enforcement, which means creating a drug task force, creating a gang task force, making sure that you have a prosecutor on the task force, a DA investigator on the task force. So when law enforcement is investigating these cartels and these drug traffickers, you're there to support them because the officers are not lawyers. So they need help on the front end, not just on the back end. What does that mean? So, instance, if they need to get a search warrant, if they need to do a wiretap, if they need to do surveillance, they need to get warrants signed, and it needs to be done legally. And the DA needs to be available to draft these warrants, to get a surveillance warrant, to get a warrant for a wiretap, to get a search warrant, and then the DA needs to get judges to sign these warrants. And that's what needs to be done. I've worked with these agents before in serious gang cases and drug trafficking cases. You have to be there with them on the front end. And the DA is just not doing that right now. And that's what my intention is. That's how you curb the problem in Hall County. That's how you deal with it. That's how I'm going to deal with it. You deal with it on the front end. You make sure that they realize that Hall County is no longer going to be a safe harbor for these drug traffickers. And you do that by letting everybody know, hey, now we have a gang task force, we have a drug task force, and the DA is going to actively help law enforcement in dealing with these cases on the front end. We also need a lot more community outreach. The DA's office right now does nothing. We need to go speak to and educate these at-risk youths who are in danger of being recruited by gangs and stop this pipeline of young people going into these gangs. The DA's office is not doing any of that. I intend to do that. We need to be much more proactive. But the fact is the DA right now is so checked out. Forget being proactive. He's not inactive. He's not there. And there's so much more that the DA can do, which the public doesn't realize, right? He's trying to sell his story that all he has to do is manage a few people in the office and they run the show. Are you kidding me? The DA can do so much more and should do so much more, not just try cases in the courtroom, but work with law enforcement on the front end, do this community outreach, work with all of these task forces and create these task forces. There's so much more that I intend to do to help Hall County deal with our crime problem right now.
Well, and there's one thing I want to bring up to that is that all these people are trying to blame all this on illegal immigrants. And I'm not wanting to get into an immigration debate about it, but I just want to point out that I had 2 kids just come through the school system, and several of their friends got caught up in gangs and all that. And when I worked at my construction companies and everything, it wasn't the illegals doing the stuff. It was the young kids that were born here that were raised up in the school system. Their parents may have been one of them illegal or they were been here, but it was the younger kids that were coming up through the school system and learning the American ways that they were recruiting into these gangs.
Yeah.
They weren't bringing people over here from Mexico or Guatemala or Honduras or Colombia or sure, the main guys may have been there, but not the rank and file guys.
And what people need to realize is that my whole platform has been, look, we need to make Hall County safer for you and your kids, for families, and everybody's kid is at risk right now. When you have these gangs and the drugs, everybody's kid, nobody's immune. Everybody's child is at risk of either being recruited by them or at risk of getting a hold of these drugs and getting addicted to these drugs. Right now, the number of overdose cases with young people in Hall County is ridiculous. The amount of fentanyl that's in Hall County right now and people overdosing of fentanyl, it's so sad. The amount of cases I've seen where people have overdosed on these drugs. So everybody's child is at risk. All the families in Hall County is at risk, and we need to do something about this. This is a serious problem right now in Hall County.
Like that, I'm sure you remember the case with Victor Garcia, the young kid that shot the cop a couple years ago. You don't know how many times he sat at my kitchen table and I fed him supper while his mama was waiting to get off work because he used to play sport for my kid. That was the nicest kid I'd ever met. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, ma'am. No. Real quiet. I mean, was a great athlete. And when his mom moved and got him into a different school and he didn't have a support system anymore, where did he go? He went to the game. And that's just an example of stuff that you can correct by going to the YMCA's or the boys clubs or you know, Sheriff Jerry Ramos has got all those groups that he works with out at the Butler Center and all that. There's a lot of stuff that can be done.
Yeah, and the number one step is, guess what? If you clean up Hall County and there are no gangs, then these kids have no gangs to go to, right? Number one, if you get rid of the gangs, then guess what? These kids don't have gangs to go to. And even a case like that, serious cases where officers have been victims, he hasn't gotten involved. One of the complaints that I've received from even law enforcement is that when officers themselves are even victims, Lee hasn't gotten involved. In fact, there are times when he's closed cases or his people, once again, because he's letting others do it without notifying the officers about what's happened. And these are our law enforcement that we need to back up, who themselves are victimized, and he isn't doing anything about taking care of them. That's a serious problem. That's another example of what happens when you have a DA who's not active.
Now, what happens, I'm just going, it's my perception. If I see a DA or an ADA that's very active and their office has got 95, 96% conviction rate, I'm calling BS pretty much, because that tells me they're not prosecuting serious crimes. They're plea dealing out everything. I understand a lot of cases can just be plead out because, you know, they clear the calendar, and it's just, you know, what's the difference, you know, the circumstances of it, because each case is different. But when every case is getting pleaded out, I mean, that's an issue.
Yeah, it is. And you know, it's something that can be, once again, if the DA is around and there's some oversight, that's something that can be handled actually pretty easily. But when the DA isn't around and he's just letting his staff make the decisions, then he's not around to tell them, hey, this is a serious case, no plea deals. You got to take it to trial, or you need to ask for the most serious punishment that you can get. But if the DA is not around, then there's no oversight, because one of the things, that was one of the questions that was asked during the Hall Informed debate, which again, Lee didn't show up to that. I was there, but one of the questions was about plea deals, and I'm like, there's an easy distinction to make. If it's a low-level case, it's a shoplifting, it's a minor theft, then it's totally fine to make a plea deal because we don't want to clog up the system. But if it's a serious violent case, is a serious victim case, then if it's necessary, then you need to take it to trial and you need to seek the most harsh sentence possible. But the DA needs to be around to make sure that's being done, right? If he's not around, then his people have free reign to do whatever they want to do, even with serious cases. And some of these serious cases, 100% should not be pled out at all. They should be taken to trial.
And with me personally, I'd rather a DA take it to court and take the chances of maybe the guy being exonerated, but at least you're trying to send a message. Even if you lose, these people know, my God, if we do this, they're going to try to prosecute.
100%. That's part of the job. Like if even if it's a difficult case, you can't shy away from taking it to trial. Sometimes, if it's the right thing to take it to trial, if it's a serious case, and even if there's a chance you may lose, you take it to trial, because, like you said, it sends a message. It tells the victim and their families as well that you're willing to fight for them, You're not going to win every single fight. That's just not how the courtroom works. That's not how life works, right? You're not going to win every single fight, but sometimes you do have to fight. If it's the right thing to do, you got to fight.
So sometimes you actually win when you do lose. I mean, you know,
That's exactly right too.
that's just the way it is. It's the perception that goes across. You can't be a DA thinking, oh, he's just going to cave. We're going to plea out anyway. You know, you've got to. And I know one person brought it up, and I don't know what your feelings are on what happens if you get a capital case and somebody's wanting to go for the death penalty. Would you be willing to go that far, or is it a personal? I mean, how far does that go into personal beliefs, or is it just boxes you check down a list saying, hey, this meets the death penalty, we have to go for it? Or, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot about, hey, I'm pro death penalty, not death penalty. I mean, how does that play in? Because I've seen several people bring it up on Facebook, and they're trying to bring, well, will he go for the death penalty? But, well, you know, it's just a.
And you know, the DA's job really is to not have those personal beliefs come into play. The fact is, if you are the actual elected DA, and if you believe if it checks those boxes, like he said, and it's a case where the death penalty needs to be sought, then it needs to be sought. But I'll tell you, those are extremely rare cases. Super
Oh
rare.
yeah, no, they're extremely rare.
But for a DA who's actually elected to say that this is my personal belief, that wouldn't be appropriate, right? It'd be the same thing as the DA saying, hey, there are certain crimes out there, but it's my personal belief, I don't want to prosecute these crimes. No, that's not what you're elected to do. You're a prosecutor. You're supposed to prosecute the crimes that are on the book. So as long as the death penalty is legal, it's still a legal punishment in Georgia, then the DA is required and should follow that. And if at a certain point in time, the death penalty is no longer a legal sentence, then the DA has to follow that too. It's the DA's job is to follow the laws. And so there's no, this is not about personal belief. It's about the DA should just look at what the evidence is and what laws apply to the evidence. And if it's the right law to apply in that case, then they need to apply it.
Yeah.
And that's my opinion on that.
Okay. Yeah, no, because it's a fine line. It's all a personal belief. And, you know, and I've heard that Lee hadn't even been showing up at grand jury hearings. I mean, if they even do any of that, I mean, is that normal, or do you usually? I thought the DA usually handles that, not one of the ADAs.
Yeah, the DA Lee's been used to handle that. That's the one thing he would not miss grand jury, because you know that's his way of meeting people from the community, the grand jury. And the fact that he's missing even that is troubling. Like I said, I don't know what's up with him, where he's at, but the fact that he's not even showing up to grand jury is very concerning. And people should be wondering, why should they vote for someone who's kind of disappeared? Why should they vote for an empty chair? How can they be assured that this guy's even going to come back to work? Like, I don't know. And like I said, I have grave concerns about whether he can finish off the rest of the year, let alone 4 more years. So that's concerning.
Yeah, and I just wish people could understand you pointing out your candidate's faults is not bashing Lee. It's not saying he's a bad person. It's not saying he wasn't good at his job for all these years. It's just bringing out somebody's faults like that in a public race. That is not you trying to chop them down and beat them down and, you know, and make them look bad. I mean,
yeah.
And that's what people don't understand in today's world. I mean, I don't know anything else you can do to make it seem less severe, but I mean, I know it's got to be hard that everything that comes out, they're destroying, and the people that's destroying you or coming at you, they're doing the same thing they're accusing you of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and I don't think I think I have, first of all, what I've done is anything that I've said is about Lee, right? It's not about, I'm not attacking all of these ADAs in the office, but they've decided that they're going to attack me, right? I'm going against the one. It's not there. They shouldn't be involved, like I said. I don't know why they've taken upon themselves. I do know, because like I said, they feel threatened because it proves my point that they're the ones running the show,
Right.
which is why even though I'm running against Lee, I'm dealing with them. Why are they attack? Why am I having to deal with them? And I'm trying to ignore them, even in spite of all of their attacks. Um, I could single them out. All of them have so many skeletons in their closets. I could just bring that up and drag them through the mud. I'm not doing that. I'm focusing on Lee and focusing on the fact that he hasn't been doing his job, which is fair game, because that's what the election is about. Hey, and I'm focusing on the fact that if he's not showing up, he's not active, then he's not the best option for DA, and people shouldn't be voting for someone who's going to be an absentee DA. That's fair. You're a public official. That's fair. I'm not saying Lee's a bad person. I'm not calling out his character. That wouldn't be fair. I'm no interest in doing that, in spite of the fact that they have been saying all sorts of things, which I think it's been pretty horrible. I'll be honest with you, and it's been, the personal attacks have been too much, and it's been mentally very difficult. When I ran, I thought it would be about qualifications, about who's the better candidate. Someone, for example, in the last 18 years who's tried 70 cases versus someone who's tried one case and messed that up. Someone who's actually been at work compared to someone who's not at work. I thought it would be about qualifications, but it's just, they've turned it into something totally horrible, and it's sad and unfortunate. But as far as I'm concerned, it reflects very poorly on them. And I think all of these personal attacks and the venom and just name calling is just uncalled for.
Right.
But it also shows how Lee has lost all control of that
Well,
office.
In my opinion, the way I looked at it, when you resigned to run, that showed me your character right there. Because you could have easily kept your job and undermined him from inside if he wasn't at the office. And you chose not to
just
do
from
that. You
just from our little bit of interaction, I feel like they don't have necessarily any kind of credibility stuff that they can attack. So I think they're doing the low ball stuff to attack personality, or like personal stuff, bringing stuff like that out. So I think that's a little bit more credit to you than anything else. But I think we're just in that kind of state of world at this point too, where it kind of happens on a national level, federal level, or the national elections and stuff. And some of the clown shows that we've had throughout the White House over the last 14, 15, 16 years, where we kind of gotten to the point where like, hey, they're doing it, so I think it's okay for us to do it now too.
Yeah, that's a good point. Politics has become so ugly and so divisive. I didn't realize that even at a local level, it gets so bad, but it does.
Yeah.
It does. Apparently, it has. It has trickled down from the national level all the way. And I thought maybe it'd stop at least at the state level, but even down to the local county level,
Yeah.
it's gotten so bad. And I think people think it's okay to do that now because they see it all over the country being done. So I think that's part of the reason. So yeah, it's disappointing. It just makes it even more difficult for people to run. It just creates more barriers to entry. It just gives the incumbents more power because it's such a traumatic experience to run.
Oh,
Why
it
would
is.
anybody
I
want to
couldn't
go through this?
imagine.
Why would anybody want to go through this?
Yeah.
And it's just disappointing that someone who's qualified, who has a lot of experience, who would be a good candidate, has to deal with this like I've been dealing with. I thought I was doing the right thing, right? I still believe I'm doing the right thing.
Well, I
There's
think
been
if you can deal with this and get through this at this point, I would assume being having the title of as a DA, there's probably more stuff to come from the general public. I would imagine, no, just because of the responsibility, and then obviously you having to prosecute criminals. It's not the favorite job for obvious reasons. And then all the public perception that comes with it too, and just having to deal with misinformation, public opinion, and stuff like that. So I feel like if you can get through this, get elected, that's probably just going to increase the scrutiny, the personal attacks, etc. I would imagine it's just probably going to increase for you at that point. Maybe not from the DA's office, because a lot of them I would assume are going to be gone. But it's set, during the election with the general public and that perception.
Yeah, it's that is exactly right, and it's just it's just something. It's something that I just have to deal with, and it's like I said, it's unfortunately it's just how they've made things into it. The reality is it doesn't. There's more scrutiny for reasons that shouldn't even factor into
Right.
it.
Yeah.
There's more scrutiny because of the color of my skin, right?
Yeah, no.
Right.
I mean,
So-
you gotta
so-
face it. There's probably 15-20% of the public's not going to vote for you just cause of
Yeah.
skin color.
There's more scrutiny because my last name is Sachdeva and it's not Smith, right? So
Yeah.
it has nothing to do with my qualifications. It has nothing to do with the kind of person I am. It's just a reality. And so for me, it's kind of double. Like any candidate in my position would be gets a lot of negativity, but for me, it's double because of my race, right? And that's the other troubling aspect, the amount of racism I've had to deal with and the amount of racist comments. It's people when they're on social media, they're hiding behind a keyboard. They think it's okay, right? They can get away with saying whatever they want to say, and all of the worst traits come out, unfortunately.
And you
And so
took the
that's
high
another
road
thing I have to deal
too. I
with.
mean, you've done a great job handling it. I mean,
Yeah.
And the thing is, I have to keep in mind that a lot of times these people who are the ugliest are like a very vocal minority, because the silver lining, that's the darkness, right? But there is also light, because I've gotten so much support and there's so many good people that I've met, right? And so many people who are very supportive along the way, like people like you guys, like that I've met, and people like the people running some of these Facebook groups, right? Like Jody, for instance. So people like those, like there's plenty of people, regardless of their background, who have been supporting me. It's just that this ugliness takes a toll on you, but I just have to keep in mind that that's a distraction. My job is to make sure that people realize that I'm the best person to be DA, and I'm not going to be sucked into it. So if you are, in fact, if someone out there is in fact a racist and won't vote for me just because of the color, good. I don't want your vote. It's fine, right? It's fine.
I mean, yeah.
I still believe I'm going to win even without your vote. So it's totally fine. But all the people who are objective, all the people who just want the best person to do the job, I feel are supporting me. Every single one of them. Because how can you be objective and decide at this point in time that Lee Dare is the best person on the job? When he's absent, when he hasn't done anything, how can you in any way being completely objective say that he's not? It's not even a close call anymore, really. If you're just plainly being objective, who's the best person on the job? It's not even a close call. He's done. He's at the end of his career. He should retire. I don't know why he isn't stepping down. Like I said, it's probably because of people in the office who are influencing him because they don't want to let go of their power and lack of accountability. But anybody who's objective, I think, is going to be voting for me. It's not even a close
I think
call.
a lot of it's because of the games with Godfathers. They got somebody in office they can control the swamp, the people that control the town behind the scenes. They know who he is. They know what to expect. And it's kind of like what's going on with the federal government. I mean, I know it's got to be hard for you, but none of these crooks are getting prosecuted, from the Epstein files to the slush fund in Congress to state level people. And you know, when you get people in court, why in the heck am I getting prosecuted? Hell, they don't prosecute these guys. You know, they get away with it. It's got to be nerve wracking. I mean, and just kind of frustrating to deal with all this.
Yeah, and you know, and I try to, and I don't know some of the inner workings, because like I've always said that from day one. I've said that I'm not a politician. I'm running because I'm a prosecutor, and the DA position is the prosecutor position. Lee's made it into a politician position because he's not acting like a DA, right? He's not being an attorney. So right now, at this point, is just a politician in office, managing the office. So some of what's happening in the back rooms, what the dealings are, I don't know what's happening, but I try to stay away from that. I still feel that the general public, uh, in the primaries, usually you get about 40 to 50,000 people who are going to vote. So I do feel that I'm counting on those people to see that I'm the right person for the job, and I'm counting on them that they'll vote for me and I'll be elected. Um, and I do think those people need to know, though. We need to bring out the fact that Lee hasn't been at work for. They need to know that. They may not know that. And I frankly think someone needs to investigate what's going on. Why are these people saying campaigning for him when they shouldn't be campaigning for him? Why is his employees saying that he's fit to run for office if he isn't? If he isn't fit to run for office, they shouldn't be saying that, and they shouldn't be trying to fool the public into thinking that he still has the capacity to run for office if I don't know where he's at. So I do think that we need to make sure that the public knows what's going on with him.
And I think the public needs to know that you're going to prosecute people that no matter how much money they got, what their name is, none of that matters. The law is law.
The law is the law, and that's my stance. There's not going to be any agendas. There's not going to be anything like that. It's you. If you committed a crime, you're going to be prosecuted. If you committed a felony, you're going to be prosecuted. And every case is going to be treated fairly. And if there are cases, because sometimes the DA's office does get cases where people are innocent, those cases need to be dismissed, and that's just how it needs to be done. So if someone's guilty, you prosecute it. If they're innocent, then you dismiss the case, because you don't want an innocent person prosecuted. You never want that. So, but if someone's guilty and has committed a heinous crime, they need to be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. There are a couple of things I do want to address that that have been brought up. One of the things that people have brought in that way is like, hey, what about Blake Poole? He's a defense attorney. Doesn't matter. The reason I know Blake Poole is the fact that he was one of my interns in the DA's office. Like I said, I ran the internship program. He went to Georgia State. He was actually a prosecutor. People don't know that, but he was actually I was a supervisor. He became an intern. From an intern, he became an ADA. He was a prosecutor for about a year or so, and then he left. He went into private practice. He was a successful private practice, and he's not my boss right now. I am an independent contractor. I'm a legal consultant. And if someone needs consultation on a case, whether it's Blake Poole or anybody else, they can. Like I said, I'm an attorney. I obviously have to make ends meet while I'm running the campaign. So I'm just a legal consultant. I'm not, whether Blake needs advice on a case or any other attorney needs advice on a case or anybody else. But what everybody needs to keep in mind, and everybody knows, Blake knows this, every single defense attorney, anybody who's has a big standing in the community, it doesn't matter.
Right.
My integrity is number one for me. That is paramount, and it does come. The other question that I get asked a lot is like, hey, what's your faith and what's going on? And like I said, I'm not going to shy away from it. I'm a Hindu. I am a man of faith, and my integrity, a lot of it does come from my faith in making sure that I am doing the right thing, being a good person, and serving the public. That's
Yeah.
my testimony about my faith. My whole life, my whole legal career, I've served the public. I could have left with Blake or any other attorney or started my own practice a long time ago, and I would have been making so much more money, but that wasn't where my heart is. My heart is in public service, which is why I want to continue to do that and be the DA. The other thing that's been mentioned is about the fact that I have residence in Forsyth County. It's true, but the fact is I've served Hall County for the past 18 years. It's the citizens of Hall County and the people of Hall County that I've served for 18 years and put my heart and soul. It's the people of Hall County that I haven't abandoned. I could have left and joined private practice, but they're the ones who I'm serving. Uh, they're the ones. I volunteered with Meals on Wheels here in Hall County. They're the ones that I did. I was in the Center Point mentoring program. I mentored a kid who was in the Hall County school system from elementary school all the way till he graduated from high school. So for them to say, "Oh, I have no connections to Hall County," is ridiculous. My wife is a professor at UNG, and the classes that she teaches are in Dahlonega and in Hall County in Gainesville. She teaches the future teachers. She teaches undergraduate students as well as graduate students, PhD students who want to be teachers. Teachers who a lot of whom have ended up in Hall County schools. The fact is, Lee Dara is citing his zip code, but he's the one who's taking from the taxpayers from Hall County. So I'm the one who's actually serving the people of Hall County, while what he has is a zip code. That's all he has. And if I really wanted to, I knew this, they would try to make this an issue. If I really wanted to, I could have rented a place and said, "Hey, I'll live in," but I wasn't going to do that because once again, I'm a man of integrity. My plan is to buy in Hall County because we intend to live in Hall County. And frankly speaking, I've done that already, but running a campaign and buying a house is a huge financial strain.
No, it is.
So I have to wait until the primary is done. That's the if I wanted, I could have just rented a place, right? Financially, that's much more feasible, and then I could say that. But I'm not here to play games. I'm going to be frank, and I've never shied away from that. It's not like I'm hiding the fact that I live in Forsyth County. I've been open about it, and I'm not trying to play a game by renting an apartment in Hall County and say, "Hey, I'm a resident." No, my plan is to win this election and buy a house here, and that's what the plan is, and nobody should question that, and that's an absolute non-issue because it's Hall County who I've been serving for the past 18 years.
Right. And and that's, these people, they're just grasping at straws when they start looking at that. I mean, it's ridiculous. Like we talked beforehand, at least half the people that come to this town don't live in Hall County every day. And
That's right.
And you'd mentioned something about the ADAs. They may live outside the county as well.
Yeah, I think with the DA staff, including ADAs and McNair, about 80% of the Hall County DA staff does not live in Hall County. And, it's just, I think Lee actually sent out a mailer or someone on his staff, because once again, Lee's not around, saying something about, they sent out a mail or someone who's telling me where it had a picture of me with the truck saying he's going to be going back to Forsyth County, trying. Now that, for instance, when they talk about, I'm like, that's so ridiculous. That's what you have. Really, it's not about my qualifications. It's
Right.
not about what I can do. I'm trying to reduce the crime. It's about that. That's just like literal scare tactics. Like, oh yeah, he's going to go back to. Are you kidding me? That's all you have? Because if that is all you have, you don't have much at all at that point.
Well, and Viral and I talked about this before, and why didn't he just ride off in Sunset and hand pick a successor to run in his place if he's ran the office so well?
Exactly right.
He would have somebody ready to step in.
That's right. But
he didn't groom anybody, it doesn't look like, because usually you see somebody with a lot of potential and say, "Hey," or if you see somebody with potential, you push them out the door because
because you essentially, your legacy is also your successor too. So you ride off into the sunset and you appoint somebody that's well qualified to take over. I think leaves to me anyways, a better legacy behind, instead of the way potentially he's going out at this point of essentially looking like Joe Biden. You're not really there. You're just the auto pen, and your staff's kind of running the show for you behind the scenes.
That's exactly right, because a lot of people compared his performance at the last debate or the panel he was at to Biden's last debate with Trump, where he finally had to drop out of the race because even his supporters were like, "Man, you don't have it." And Lee, frankly, looked even worse than Biden. He looked really bad. And the fact that
How old is he? How old is
he
Lee Darren?
is 74, 75.
Dude,
around that.
that's almost my dad's age, and like, I
Yeah.
see the cognitive and physical decline in my dad at this point. So like, somebody that age, and not to be ageist, but like, come on,
Yeah.
like let go and let the younger generation start taking over. I don't understand that and personally in politics too, like some of these people that just want to live around, like what do you have to gain from this? What is this? It's got to be nothing more than a power hunger. Because it's like, dude, I would rather not be doing any of this and sit at home and retire, spend my time with my kids or with my grandkids or something else, instead of dealing with this public BS.
Mhm.
This
And
isn't that, like, this isn't a job you want, or like, people strive for, or anything like
yeah,
that. So it's really wild to me.
yeah, and exactly right, because like we talked about, it's such a stressful job. But I do think a reason, if Lee was active, if he was actually doing what he's supposed to be doing, which is put his heart and soul into his job, he would have retired, because he'd be tired. He'd be like, I don't want to do this anymore at my age. But like you said, why doesn't he go retire? Because he's been treating this job as a retirement job. That's why he doesn't feel the need. Because if you're not putting in the work, then it's an easy job, right? If you're
Sure,
not coming into
sure.
work, then you're just getting a free paycheck and you're just treating it. If he was actually doing the job like it's meant to be, I think he would have been like, okay, I'm 75.
I'm
I can't
done,
keep on
right?
doing this till I'm almost 80, because that's what he will be if he gets another 4 years. He'll be almost 80, which is unimaginable in this job. And he would have been like, no, this is too much. But because he doesn't have to do anything, he's like, well, I can keep on doing this because nobody's calling me out on not doing anything. I still get a paycheck, so might as well. I think that's why he hasn't stepped down. And now clearly something's up with him. He's not able to even make up public appearances or come to work. And now it may be more his people just pushing him to keep going because they don't want to lose their positions.
Right. Well, and one thing that I would like, that I admired about you, is I think I read on your bio, you came here with like $100 in your pocket or $1,000 in your pocket when you started school. And that shows your determination and work ethic just to build yourself up to where you are now. I mean,
yeah,
that's got for something.
Yeah, for sure. Like, it's funny. When we talk about racist comments and stuff, this is it's the opposite. People should be inspired by this, because this is the American dream, right? What I did shows what you can do in this country if you work hard. It is the American dream. People should be proud of my story and the story of so many others. I came to this country when I was 18, right before I went to UGA undergrad, and that's it. I really had nothing, no money. My parents gave me the plane ticket to get here, but that's it. And I had to work through college and get scholarships and financial aid, and did various kinds of jobs during college. I even ended up working at like at a science lab where I had to deal with these super dangerous nitrous oxide stuff, that the kind of stuff that caused that tragedy in Hull County. And I used to work with I did all kinds of stuff to make ends meet. I actually even had to take a year off after undergrad because I didn't have enough money to go law school. So I worked. I just worked in retail stores because I just wanted to make enough money to go to law school, and I did. In all of that, I became a citizen and went to law school and been a prosecutor my whole career. So I've worked hard for everything I've done, and it's the American dream. It can show what can be done in this country, and people should be inspired by that rather than trying to tear me down. Like one of the ADAs over there was had the audacity. One of the personal attacks was like saying that I was lazy. I'm like, are you kidding me? You know how much I've worked to get to the point that I'm to call me lazy? Like, it's just people coming up with personal attacks that don't even make any sense. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But as far as I'm concerned, it shows this is the American dream. It shows what you can do if you put the work in. You can achieve anything. So,
Shiv, is there like just looking at the I guess like the website for your guys' circuit, are any of the judges or clerks or etc. able to kind of tell Lee like, come on, dude, you're too old for this to be doing this, or is it that kind of like out of their reach?
yeah, I don't know who's comfortable enough. I know that.
Is there a boss essentially to the DA? Like,
no, there's
no,
no boss.
okay.
There's nobody.
You guys work hand in hand with some of these judges in the
We do,
circuit.
yeah.
Okay.
So when we're in the courtroom, technically speaking, the judges are the boss. Where the judges, you go to the courtroom, the attorneys, whether you're the DA or if you're a defense attorney, you got to listen to what the judge says when you're in the courtroom. But outside of the courtroom, the DA is their own entity. The public, the people voted the DA into office, so there is no technically boss of the DA. And if the judges, for instance, if they have concerns about the DA and how the DAs, they're not ethically allowed to even publicly speak about that. Their rules don't allow it. So they may say things behind closed doors personally, but their rules of professional conduct does not allow judges to publicly say something. For instance, if they have an issue, say that, hey, Lee needs to step down or he isn't active, they're not allowed to do that publicly, unfortunately.
Okay, gotcha. Have you got any endorsements for any of the police departments or anything like that? Is that a thing? Because I know you, like you said, you met with a lot of them.
I did. I met with all the, but once again, it's the same with them as it is with the judges. They can't. I know I have their backing. I can tell you that confidently, but they're not allowed. Their agencies won't allow them to like go out and say, "Hey,"
I got you. Right.
Because at the end of the day, they have to work with whoever wins the election.
So essentially,
Yeah.
everyone else outside of the DA's office has a lot more ethics and professionalism at this point. From the sounds of it.
That's an excellent point. You're right that you just brought up that how you can see that other people who shouldn't be speaking out publicly are not, because ethically they're not, like the judges and the law, but the same rules apply to the people in the DA's office, but they are violating all kinds of ethics by
Right.
speaking out. You're exactly right. They are not showing any restraint, unlike the other people who are.
That's funny.
So anything else you want to get out there? I mean, I know at the debate, nonpartisan debate, you kind of laid out a plan of how you wanted to run things and how, you wanted to streamline stuff.
For sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
you got to have a pecking order. People don't like it sometimes, but I mean, that's just the way it is to run an efficient office, because we all know that going and getting as a defense attorney, getting 500 an hour is a whole lot easier than running for DA. It's a thankless job, and and you got to put a lot of thought and time into it. So lay out your plan of what you want to accomplish, and can it be done in 4 years? I mean, how quickly can it be done? Can you implement it like in 6 months, a year?
I think a lot of what I want to do can be accomplished relatively quickly. For instance, some of the things that I've already talked about is, one, number one, right? The DA needs to be active. That's the number one thing I've been talking about is like the DA needs to be in the courtroom handling the most serious cases. Uh, is the DA going to handle every serious case? No, absolutely not. But the DA should be handling at least some of these serious cases. So I can do that from day one. That's easily implemented because the DA needs to be in the front line so that everybody, including all the gangs and the criminal elements, know that the DA is out there actually active handling cases. The other things is creating these task force that I've talked about that can be implemented fairly quickly because I've already talked to law enforcement, right? I've already had these conversations with all these agencies. They are on board. They want the same thing. They want the DA's help in creating these task force, the gang task force or the drug task force. So that can be implemented fairly quickly within a couple of months. That can be done because I already have the support of law enforcement to do that. The other thing that I want to implement is the cold case unit. I have so many people, families and victims. There are cases that are languishing that nobody's looking at. We need a specific unit of prosecutors and law enforcement who are looking at these cases and making decisions. Either we move forward with the case, do something with it, or we make a decision to close the case. But something needs to be done. Like these people need answers, and there are all these cold cases that are just languishing. And that can be done. That's an inter-office thing. That as DA, I can create fairly quickly. I just need to make sure I have the right people in place. And all of that will also lead to lowering the crime rate. And that obviously will take a little bit more time because you got to put these things in place. But I do know that my goal of lowering the crime rate, trying to make sure that Hall County, Gainesville especially, is no longer a safe harbor for drug traffickers and gangs, trying to get rid of them, definitely can be accomplished in 4 years for sure. But like I said, if we wait much longer, it's going to be almost impossible. It'll be a point of no return. Like I've always said, no, I don't think anybody who lives in Hall County wants Hall County to be Fulton County. And it's just going to be at a certain point, the problems get so much. It's just overwhelming for law enforcement, for DAs. We're not at that point. Hall County should never get to that point. But because of the DA not being active, we are getting to that point. But I do think that if something's done right now, we can definitely stem the tide and get this back. The other thing I want to do is make sure that I am available to law enforcement to make better cases and investigate these cases and give them assistance. A lot of what's happening is we get cases to the DA's office, and in the last few years, especially, law enforcement is pointing the finger at the DA's office, and the DA is pointing the finger at law enforcement when cases go sideways, when cases have to be dismissed, or in the courtroom you don't get the results you want, and the DA's office is like, well, law enforcement didn't do their job, they should have done a better investigation. I want to get rid of that because we're all on the same team. I want us to work together. So instead of, because what happens is, if let's say take a simple drug case, right? To explain it to just the general public how things work. If an officer makes a drug case, a lot of times we'll get motions filed with the defense trying to suppress the evidence. And if there's something wrong, for instance, if the law enforcement officer got a search warrant, if something's wrong with the search warrant, legally speaking, the judge suppresses the evidence. And if they suppress the evidence, you have no case. The evidence is gone. The case has to be dismissed. At that point, then you end up with law enforcement who's unhappy because they put in all this work, and you have this drug dealer or drug trafficker who's gone free. The DA's office isn't happy because they're like, well, you didn't do the search warrant right. It got dismissed. They point the finger at the law. I want to get away from that. I want to make sure that we have a partnership where the DA and someone in the DA's office is always available 24/7 for law enforcement to help with these things on the front end so that you don't have those issues. If the attorneys, the DA's office has their attorneys, if they draft these search warrants, they can make sure that there's nothing legally wrong with them. They can make sure that the evidence doesn't get thrown out. And so my goal as the DA would be to make sure that I'm available to law enforcement whenever they need me. Right now, he's not available. When they have questions, he's not available. And sometimes this is on serious cases. If you have a homicide and you have a question about how to handle something, he's not available, right? And so we need to get away from that. Uh, Bureau brought up a case where Lee finally dismissed the charges against those kids, right, who were charged with homicide, where you had the teacher who
Right.
died, and it was an incredible tragedy. But those kids shouldn't have been arrested to begin with. What happened was you had a stressful situation where a beloved member of the community has passed away, right, the teacher, and the officer on the scene charged the kid with vehicular homicide, and there was no legal basis for doing that. But he's an officer; he's not a legal expert. And remember, when you're making a charge, you just need probable cause. You don't need to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. And the kid spent the weekend in jail, which shouldn't have happened. And Lee later on, his excuse was, well, law enforcement, the sheriff's office did not call me before making this decision. And that was my point. I'm like, why didn't they call you? Why don't they trust you enough? Why aren't you available enough for them to feel that they can call you? That's exactly the kind of situation where you should be available. Someone's literally died, right? A beloved member of the community. There are kids in the scene who are involved. And so extremely stressful situation. You need the DA to step in to help law enforcement make the right decisions.
You know, it's just a horrible accident. I
Horrible
mean,
accident. And the right
sometimes there's no
decision.
fault of anybody.
And the right decision was made, but much too late. This could have been done right at the time of the incident, and the kids and the kids' families did not have to go through this. Even, so that was an example of how the lack of communication and relationship between the DA and law enforcement hurts everyone. Everybody got hurt because of that. And I'm going to rectify that. I'm going to make sure that law enforcement can call me with these difficult decisions, because it's the DA who needs to make these decisions.
Right. All right. Well, we've covered about everything that we think is important. Unless you got anything else you want to just stress or get out there. I mean, I know your wife's been a trooper through all this, and I mean, I met her the first time last week at the debate, and she's a nice lady. I mean, she's well liked, baby. I've not heard a bad thing about her at all. I mean, and it's good to have a good partner to go behind you with that. I mean,
yeah, I'm glad you brought her up, Chris. That's the other thing I would want to say is that I do want people to realize that running for office is extremely difficult, and I knew it'd be difficult on me, but it's also difficult on the person's family. It's been extremely difficult on her, but she's been amazing. She's the love of my life. She's my constant support. She's had to deal with the ugliness that I receive, right? And it's hard on her, and she hadn't experienced this type, right? Because people who've met her know that she's white, she's not brown. So for her, it was eye-opening to see the amount of racism that I've received, and it's been tough on her. It was eye-opening to her to see all the negativity, and how some of the people in the DA's office have acted, how childish they've been about the whole situation. But she's been a trooper, and I would implore people to realize the fact that we are good people. We just want to do the right thing, and it really isn't right that they're trying to drag me through the mud, and it's been super traumatic on her as well, and it's just not right. We're just trying to do the right thing. I think that Hall County desperately needs a good district attorney, desperately. So I wanted to mention that. I'm glad you brought her up, Chris, because Daniel's been amazing, and I do believe that we're going to win this. This has been a tremendous fight, but we're going to win this. Like I said, I am a man of deep faith. I believe that God put me in this position for a reason, and this is the right time, because Hall County desperately needs a change right now in this moment in time. People are going to look back at this moment in time, and if change isn't done, they're going to regret it. I'm telling you. The other thing I wanted to mention, besides But I don't want to focus on the ugliness. I do want to focus on the fact that she's been great. All the people that I've met along the way, all the supporters, all the good people I've met, all the people who are supporting me, all the people who realize that I'm the best person on the job. They've been wonderful. I want to thank all of them because, frankly, every one of them who stood up for me has in some way put their neck on the line, because it's been so bad that anybody who stands up for me, the DA's office starts attacking them, right? And that's what's happened. So I appreciate all of them. They didn't need to. They didn't need to do that. Their vote for me would be good enough, but they've gone beyond just voting for me. They've stood up for me. And I don't want to just focus on the negativity. I want to focus on the good. I do believe that good always prevails over evil, and so I've seen some evil come from the other side, but I've seen a lot of good, and I'll focus on that. On all these people who have supported me, who stood up for me, who've taken the bullets for me, and continue to do so because they know it's the right thing to do. The reason they're doing it is not because they have any personal agenda. They're doing it because they're good people who want what's best for the county.
Right.
And the good people who want what's best for the county are standing up for me. And I appreciate that, because my whole life I've always gone along with people who have a good heart. And it continues even in this campaign. Even people who I barely know are standing up for me. And I know why they're doing that. It's not because I'm personally friends with them or anything. They're doing that because they have goodness in their heart and they want to do the right thing and they want to do what's best for Hall County. And my final point, so I want to thank all of them for doing that. And I appreciate you. I know that this hasn't been easy, and I appreciate you for standing up for what's right. And the final point I want to make is that the people need to know that Lee Dara has been absent. That is outrageous that people in his office are still saying that he has 4 more years in him to do this job when he's absent from public appearances, from work. And people, when they go out to vote on May 19th, or if they're doing early voting right now, they need to know that if they vote for Lee Dara, they're basically voting for an empty chair. And that's wrong. They need to vote for someone, me, who's actually willing to and has the passion to do their job. That's all. Thank you guys for your time.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And if people don't know it, we got early voting right now. It's going through the 15th, and then the election day is on the 19th. So get out and vote, because this is an important one, because midterm elections usually only get about 20-25% of the registered voters come out. And that's always killed me, because that's when a lot of the major decisions are made that you got to deal with. Well, not everyone's made in a presidential election. So we appreciate your time, and we will talk to you on down the road. And
good luck, Shiv. Thanks for coming on.
We'll have
Thank
you
you,
again sometime soon.
I appreciate you guys. Take care. Have a good day.
All right,
All
you too.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.